Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. We're continuing our reading of the Fatwas of Imam al Albani. It's been educational, insightful. It's filled with a lot of questions that he answers. So this will help us in understanding not only who he is as a scholar, but also answers to these questions concerning elections. So the second question here that he was asked was, what is the ruling concerning giving support and help for such legislative elections? Okay, now he's going to answer. Let's begin. Bismillah. I do not recommend any of our Muslim brothers to nominate themselves to parliament positions that do not apply Allah's ruling in its community. Now this is troubling. When I first read it, let's see what his answer is. Because you could have Muslims get elected and then move the needle more and more towards transitioning that nation to something Islamic. That's why so many countries are, let me rephrase that. For example, that's why China wants to have the Muslims, part of the reasons why they want to have the Muslims oppressed is so that they don't divert from how China wants their country to go, which puts the Muslims at a disadvantage. They want them to adopt the communistic Confucius philosophy and to be re-educated. This is even if the country's constitution states that the official religion of this country is Islam, as this item was put in just to hypnotize the hearts of those MPs who have goodwill. A politician can never change anything from the Constitution that contradicts the divine legislation, as has been proven practically in many countries. So he contends that he doesn't want any Muslim to be in the parliament position, even if that country's official religion is Islam. Besides, some members of parliament, over the course of time, may approve some laws that contradict the divine legislation, claiming that time has not yet come to change them. Some senators may even change their Islamic attire to foreign ones just so as to be able to get along with their colleagues. They entered parliament to guide others to the right way, but unfortunately went astray themselves. And this is just the beginning. So this hints at you went in to change the beast, but the beast changed you. Like an example of that in America is AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I don't like her, but if you compare how she was when she didn't get in, and then now when she's elected, after like Fox News hammered her, and they just really probably stressed her out to the gills, so she sort of went even more weird and sort of bent the knee to the Nancy Pelosi types and whatnot, and even Jimmy Dore called her out for her lack of principality, how she shifted, once she got that big chunk of money, people change. So you go in with the best intentions, but it's so corrupt that the swamp drenches you in its moss. But at the same time, that sounds very unhopeful, because if you had more Muslims in positions of power, we could get those inappropriate books out of schools that have the Rainbow Mafia talking points. You could help fight tyranny that way, but let's see. On the other hand, when there are amongst the nominees those who excite enmity against Islam and others work for Islam. Oh wait, hold on. On the other hand, when there are amongst the nominees those who excite enmity against Islam and others who work for Islam, no matter which party they represent, I recommend every Muslim to elect those who work for Islam and those who are the nearest to its ruling and laws. Okay, so to go with those who work for Islam, Okay, no matter which party they represent. This is my own opinion, although I think that this process of nomination and elections will never accomplish the desired objective, that is the establishment of true Islamic State. But it is a way of diminishing evil or getting rid of a greater evil via performing a lesser evil, as some jurists say. Okay, so he does hint at what many of us contend of diminishing evil and then the lesser of two evils. Okay, the next question. What is the ruling regarding women's participation in the electoral process and voting? Okay, so let's put voting here on the side. Answer. They are permitted to participate in the electoral process, provided they wear the jilbab and do not mix with men. Secondly, they should elect those who are the nearest to the course of the authentic knowledge. So here, the disgusting rodent Pearly things does a campaign where she says women shouldn't vote. Here we see that Imam al Albani is saying that women can vote and participate in the electoral process. They just have to make sure that they have the hijab, the proper Islamic clothing, and that they don't free mix with men, and they should try to elect those who are nearest in authentic knowledge. Question 4. What are the rulings regarding acts done in the Parliament and regarding its members or deputies? Answer. This is an obscure question. Its aim is not clear enough for us. A Muslim member of Parliament should have knowledge of various Islamic rulings. Once a case is presented before him, he should present it to the Islamic Sharia. Whatever agrees with it gets his support, otherwise he must reject it, such as voting a vote of confidence in government, swearing allegiance to the Constitution, so on. As for how should Muslim members of Parliament deal with their colleagues, then there is no doubt that all Muslims, whether nominees or the electorate, should support those who follow the truth. So support those who follow the truth. Allah, the Lord of the world, says, quote, and be with those who are true in words and deeds. At Tawbah 9, 119. So we see here that no matter what, you need to make sure that whoever you're voting for, you need to see that they are on the right path and that they are trying to get nearer and nearer to Islamic rulings. Although he does say, if you're going to run for office, it's going to be difficult for you to do good because of the level of corruption. As for the answers to the 5th and 6th questions, they are understood from our previous answers. However, I find myself obliged to give a final piece of advice here. Do not let the aim of controlling the affairs be your main concern before making people ready to accept Islam's rule in all domains of life. Okay, so making people ready to accept Islam's rule in all domains of life. So kind of prepping them, conditioning them, helping them to see why Islam would be a good system, buttering them up in a way, right? Priming them. There's so many different synonyms you could use, but that's what I take from reading that. This can never happen except via establishing institutions and schools which teach people Islamic regulations in the correct method, and then train them to apply these rules in their lives. Okay, so look. So establishing institutions and schools which teach the correct Islamic methodology and then how they can apply it in their lives. This would be very useful for women in particular, because you hear like a long list of harams and the mind kind of is just like frozen. Okay, feels like everything's haram. What can I do? Hey, you can't do this, but I have something better. Here's what you can do. And then helping people to implement that in their lives. And then every stage, degrees. I think that's very beneficial. Very beneficial. Because people can feel overwhelmed and then turn off, and then their faith can become weaker. But if it's a process that's gradual, some people want a faster process. But for those who are struggling, if you keep them on a steady pace, I think that will help them. So each influencer can help people towards that, and then individuals can also try to establish schools and institutions. Do not let division into parties and sects influence you, as profound disputes may arise, like what happened unfortunately in Afghanistan. Allah the Almighty says, "And do not be of those who associate others with Allah, or of those who have divided their religion and become sects, every faction rejoicing in what it has." Our Rum 30:31-32. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Do not sever ties of kinship, nor have mutual hatred, nor jealousy, nor envy, nor enmity, but be servants of Allah and brothers as Allah ordered you," narrated by Muslim. So, try to avoid mutual hatred, jealousy, and envy. Try to get rid of enmity. We are Muslim brothers and sisters. We have to be careful. And don't just willy-nilly end the ties of kinship. Purification of hearts should be your first aim, then education, and be patient, for patience is a gift of Allah, and hastiness is an evil act, as the Prophet ﷺ explained in his traditions. A great saying states, "Whoever seeks a thing before its time is due will be deprived of it." Nice. So patience again. Patience is a gift of Allah. Hastiness is something evil. Impulsivity is difficult to manage, but knowing when to have that quick whip and when to act on the moment, but with very good instant judgment, is a skill that has to be gained. And enduring really tough trials, no matter what they may be, is difficult. But when we're patient, and Salah helps us to become patient because we have to hold still and focus. But once we do that and we work on it, other things fall into place that require patience, especially if a woman is to be a new mom with kids. You need to have a level of patience. It's very important. One should learn from others' experiences who had tried to get into parliament before in order to be able to establish an Islamic state, and yet did nothing. They returned empty-handed, for they never knew the wise saying that says, "Establish the Islamic state in your hearts first, then it will be established on land." So here, leading by example, that's what I get from this. That if you're not really firm inside your heart on your faith, when you go into such a difficult beast system, it's harder for you to conquer it because your faith isn't strong. So, the inner world expressing and rippling out into the outer world, our decisions shaping the landscape around us, shaping and motivating others to do good and forbidding evil, making it difficult for evil to spread. More and more people can be enlightened via your behavior, what you say, not being a hypocrite, actually doing what's required. It's very motivational. So again, if we want to have an Islamic state, we have to make sure that we actually have that in our hearts. And one way we learn that is by studying our deen, which helps us to get closer and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Verily Allah does not look at your images or your wealth and property, but at your hearts and actions." Narrated by Muslim. Another important factor. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala looks at our hearts and actions. What's inside of us? What are we doing? Don't just think that because you're beautiful, that you have money, you got land, you got a fancy car, private pool, and that somehow you are more loved. No. What's going to be in our favor is our good deeds. And good deeds come about because we took action, and our heart prompted us to take action. So when he mentioned above the Islam mistakes in your heart, if you have it in your heart, that'll prompt you to having action, which will then actually establish a more Islamic society. I cry unto Allah the Almighty, the Glorious, to guide us to the right way, and grant us beneficial knowledge, and guide us to act upon His laws, and to alleviate our trials and afflictions, and to grant us victory against our enemies. Verily He is the Hearer, the ever responsive. Aman, Wednesday morning, 9th Jumada the 2nd, 1412 Hijrah, Asla number 4, page 15, 1413 Hijrah. MashaAllah. Okay. So another example of purification of the heart, having patience, not being hasty, controlling ourselves, disciplining ourselves. He did question about how you can change for worse if you go into politics, but he did admit that it's the lesser of two evils argument, and he says women can participate in the electoral process and voting as long as they wear a proper hijab and don't free mix with men, and that they elect those who are nearest to authentic knowledge. Very educational, very insightful. I hope you learned something, because I know I did. And if you'd like to join my blog, it's www.subscribestar.com/Milahan Archive. Hope to see you there.